We've opened up our first 6 packs. Now's a good time to start talking about our sealed limited format. The rules for deck building here are easy. You start with 6 packs. That gives you a total of 72 cards. Every card that you open, you can play, and you need to construct a 40 card deck. So that means you need to pick a total of 40 cards or make a total of 32 cuts. The way I like to do this is break down your card pool into 4 categories. Starting with your best cards, your most efficient cards, and your bombs. Followed by cards that are solid playables, mediocre cards, and cards that are just too specific or don't do much on their own. We'll get started with the easiest set of cards, the ones that you cut. These are cards that are generally uninkable, have too specific ability, don't do anything unless they're part of a large specific strategy, or cards like Reflection, Creeping Chill, and Cut to the Chase that just aren't going to do a terrible amount on their own. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 that we can set aside and reevaluate later. Next are going to be cards that are really efficient, that you can utilize in your deck, that are just all around good cards, and ramp. Things that'll help you dig through your deck to find the bombs, and just overall best cards. You're going to find removal to be really important, because it'll let you deal with your opponent's best cards and their bombs. You also want to include your most powerful cards. The next 2 piles of cards are where things will start to get interesting. First, we'll set aside solid cards. Ones that are very playable, and that'll go good in almost any deck. It's important to remember that as you sort through these cards, most sealed decks are going to be very slow. Because everybody just gets what they get, nobody was able to assemble a real solid strategy that they're going to be able to apply to their opponents. For the most part, they'll fit into the category of slower mid-range decks, without much in the way of aggro or much in the way of control deck. And generally people are going to be digging for their biggest bombs. The most interesting card in this pile is Tamatoa So Shiny. In a 40 card deck, you're probably going to want at least 5 or 6 items to make him work. So now between our first and second pile, we've got 37 cards, which means we really only need 3 more cards from our last pile. Now comes the hard decisions. We've got 28 cards left and only 3 slots. Magic Golden Flowers probably wouldn't be good enough normally. Being able to support our Tamatoa and Tamatoa being able to bring them back from the discard pile probably brings them in the running. Our cards like Healing Glow, Control Your Temper, Simba, Sergeant Tibbs, and Stitch, and Timon are probably just too low impact to warrant inclusion in the deck. The same goes for Tamatoa, Drab Little Crab. Next, we can eliminate cards that are inefficient or too expensive, like Scar, Elsa Ice Surfer, and Elsa Queen Regent, along with Mr. Smee. Cards that require other specific cards to be good, like Goofy Musketeer, Cinderella Gentle and Kind, Magic Broom, and Genie for the action cards, can probably be written off as well. Cards with evasive or that can deal with evasive, such as Peter Pan and our Goofies, are more difficult to deal with in limited format and may make the cut. Robin Hood is a good card, but he's fairly expensive and it may be difficult to control the flow of the game and ensure that you have a card to draw. Megara is an interesting combat trick that leaves a glimmer behind, and Fishbone Quill fits in well with Ramp and our item deck. We can expect most removal to take place during combat, so an expensive Donald Duck with Ward isn't going to help us too much. Finally, our Doctors are fairly low impact, as is Genie the Ever Impressive and Mickey Mouse Steamboat Pilot. So now we can set these aside, and we'll probably give them one final pass before finalizing our deck. Let's take a look at what we've got left for our 3 slots. We can probably break it down into our 3 evasive creatures, Megara, and our 3 items. A quick look through our deck shows that we've got a number of cards at 6, 7, and 8 ink. Combine that with the fact that Tamatoa is in our deck, and I think it's a solid bet that we go for the item package here. So we'll pull these out. Now we've got our 40 cards picked out. We'll do one final pass at it and look for a couple of things. First, we're going to look at the high end to make sure we've got enough gas to win the game if it goes long. Here we're not doing too bad. We've got Mother Gothel and 4 other cards that are going to help secure that late game. Next thing we're going to do is look at removal. Here I feel like we're a little light. We do have Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, a Dragon's Fire, and a Hans. That'll help with removal. We also have Flotsam, whose rush ability does a good impersonation of a removal spell. And then finally we're set up pretty good for draw with Friends on the other side and 2 copies of Mad Hatter. In addition, our Alchemist will help sort through our deck. Some cards that I'd consider cutting are Break, our 2 copies of Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist, and Scepter of Arendelle. They're all a little specific, or cheaper and low impact, especially in the case of Captain Hook. Another card that I'd consider cutting would be Hercules, because we would really need cards to bodyguard if we're going to include him in the deck. That being said, I'd consider swapping him out for Mickey Mouse Steamboat Pilot, putting Peter Pan Fearless Fighter back in as a pseudo-removal card with Rush, pushing a little bit more top end with 2 Goofy Daredevils, and then finally considering Genie Powers Unleashed. We could consider including the 2-mana Genie to give him something to shift onto, but having Evasive and 3 Lore, as well as being able to get back Friends on the other side, or Dragon's Fire seem like pretty good options. Once you've made those final changes, all there's left to do is shuffle up and play. If you got something out of this, please like and subscribe, and good luck out there.